Discover the sinister secret of the stolen gold, the terrifying curse of the haunted Charro Negro. Maria wiped down the sticky booth table, her tired eyes scanning the empty diner. The flickering neon sign cast a ghastly glow, disturbing shadows lurking in every corner. It was a small-town diner, but whispers prowled through it like a predatory beast. She caught a snippet from a huddle of men in the corner booth, their faces hidden in shadows. "Stolen gold, Charro Negro cursed," one of them muttered, voice low and trembling. Goosebumps prickled her skin. This was no ordinary gossip, these words slithered around her like a noose tightening, igniting a cold dread deep within. The mention of gold stirred an ancient fear, the kind that gnawed at the townsfolk every time disaster struck, every time good neighbors turned away from Maria and her kids. Carlos and Lucia were tucked away at home, blissfully ignorant of the darkness creeping closer. The diner, once vibrant, now served as both a refuge and a prison for whispers about her family's fall from grace. And now, with workers disappearing one by one, the hushed conversations only grew louder, settling heavily in her gut. The late-night breeze carried an unsettling chill, wrapping around her like a warning. Stacking the salt shakers, her hands trembled. Panic unfurled that night, clawing into her dreams, twisting reality. And when she awoke, strange hoofprints marred the mud outside her doorstep, deep and impossible. She stumbled back, breath caught in her throat. Someone or something was playing a game with her, one rooted in shadows and legends where the Charro Negro reigned supreme. She felt the walls whisper as if the curse of her family's misfortune clung to her like a damp shroud. As dread seeped deeper, Maria confronted the town's growing vibrancy, a sinister bloom among familiar faces. The mayor, with his saccharine smile, dismissed her fears with vague platitudes, while her once close friends turned away, their eyes daring not to meet hers. How could they rejoice when people vanished before the festival, a celebration steeped in deceit? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The festival approached like a storm cloud, and Maria's heart raced with each passing day. The laughter and music, meant to uplift, felt like a taunt against the backdrop of her crumbling sanity. Old-timers spoke of the Charro Negro, a figure cloaked in folklore who punished the greedy. Somehow, the gold, the disappearances, and the town's revival fused into a palpable dread that hung on the air like smoke, staining the very fabric of her life. Moments of bliss shattered around her, the laughter of children overshadowed by the dark shadows creeping into her home. One final revelation brought her to her knees. The men she overheard were not mere dreamers. They were the puppeteers of this tragic play. Maria could feel eyes on her, the sinister pulse of something wicked watching her, waiting. She clutched her children's hands, her grip tightening around their small fingers. She could almost hear the wind whisper, warning her of the malevolent grip of the Charro Negro, drawing closer as she neared the truth about her town. The night air thickened, shadows of the festival hiding unspoken horrors. With threats looming, Maria faced a choice: expose the darkness before it consumed them, or vanish into that very darkness, becoming just another ghost story whispered in the winds. With every heartbeat echoing against the cacophony of celebration, she could feel it time meandering toward an inevitable confrontation. Would she ward off the curse or succumb to the very shadows that had once cradled her within their embrace? The night of the festival arrived, cloaked in a suffocating mist that clung to the streets like a dark promise. Maria stood at her window, heart pounding against her chest, watching as townsfolk poured in from every side, faces gleaming with a false sense of joy. Laughter, mingled with an eerie kind of celebration, swept through the streets, echoing like a sinister symphony. It felt as if the town had been transformed, but something wicked lurked beneath the surface. She could hardly breathe, the fear wrapping around her throat. The air crackled with a tension she couldn't shake. The glow of paper lanterns blurred in her vision. She thought she caught sight of shadows flickering just beyond their light figures darting, watching her with obsidian eyes that seemed to reflect the very darkness she so desperately wanted to escape. "Mom!" Carlos's voice broke through her thoughts, pulling her back to the present. "Can we go? Everyone's waiting. It's going to be fun." He tugged at her arm, an innocent spark amidst the gathering dread. Against her piercing panic, Maria forced a smile. "All right, just stay close." They joined the crowd, the vibrant colors around her almost blinding. Yet with every laugh, the hairs on her neck prickled, as if the air itself whispered warnings. Vendors shouted their wares while children scampered with sticky fingers, unaware of the shadow pooling closer, hungry for tragedy, but Maria knew the truth. The legend of the Charro Negro hung over them, a looming specter entwined in the music and laughter. As they moved deeper into the throng, she saw familiar faces twisted into grotesque grins that didn't reach their eyes. They turned away from her gaze, whispers laced with trepidation dancing through the night air. Each second wrapped her tighter in anxiety. A chilling wind swept through the square, sending shivers down her spine. Maria glanced down at Carlos and Lucia, their faces illuminated by the glowing paper lanterns, but the reassurance melted away when she spotted a lone figure lurking in the shadows, dressed in all black, the silhouette unmistakable. The Charro Negro. Heart racing, she clutched her children tighter, desperate to shield them from the nightmare she felt closing in. "Mom, look!" Lucia pointed excitedly at a fire dancer, oblivious to her mother's horror. Yet, as the flames crackled, their glow flickered ominously, illuminating figures around them, faces twisting in slow motion, gaining unspeakable glee as they danced to the rhythm of their own grim fate. Something deep in Maria's gut churned. She remembered the stories old men told of sacrifices made to appease the Charro Negro. Before she could process her thoughts, a fuse sparked within her. She had to act. While others cheered and swayed to the rhythm, Maria felt an urgency rise within her. "We need to go home. Now!" she shouted, her voice rising above the muddled music, but the night seemed determined to trap her. Carried on the energy of the crowd, Maria felt people push against her, cutting off her escape. Panic seeped in deeper, her throat tightening as she shoved and pulled her children through the throng. The joyous laughter faded into a menacing cacophony, intertwining with fears so profound that they settled like lead in her stomach, and suddenly, it happened. An explosion of noise. A shriek echoed through the air, piercing the frenzy. For just an instant, silence fell. The Charro Negro emerged from the crowd, an apparition between laughter and horror, eyes glimmering like obsidian gemstones, mouth twisted into an unholy smile. The men she overheard weren't just whisperers of doom, they were the architects of this terror. With their eyes watching, Maria felt the walls of sanity slipping. Had they orchestrated this festival? The air thickened. She could hear her own heartbeat, loud and frantic, drowning out the music as she turned to flee, but where to? As they ran, Maria knew one thing: the darkness wanted her. The energy of the crowd shifted, reality warping like a funhouse mirror. She had to find the truth before the very shadows tied her and her children to a fate sealed by the curse of the Charro Negro. And the chilling thought gripped her: what if the answer lay in the very heart of the festival, waiting to ensnare her? With a surge of determination mingled with dread, Maria pushed forward, resolving to confront the grotesque reality hidden within the celebration. But as she fought her way through the thinning crowd, a haunting howl echoed across the square, sending icy terror down her spine. What horrors lay behind the darkness? Would she ever escape the clutches of the Charro Negro? The howl reverberated through the square, a chilling echo amplifying the panic gripping Maria. She pushed her way through the chaotic sea of bodies, her heart racing as the laughter morphed into a bizarre chant, an ominous rhythm that matched the pounding of her pulse. "Mom! I can't see!" Carlos whined, tugging on her shirt, his small voice nearly drowning in the chaos. Lucia was too caught up, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and excitement. Maria forced herself to glance back, desperate to keep them close. Their innocent faces caught in the shimmering glow of the lantern stood in stark contrast to the dark shadows creeping ever closer. The Charro Negro danced in her mind, a specter cloaked in dread. The town's whispers wrapped around her like chains, told her stories of cursed treasures hidden deep within the mountains, treasures that demanded tribute in blood, crafted from the very dreams of those who dared to claim them. She couldn't shake the thought, this festival wasn't just a celebration, it was a facade, a lure for the unsuspecting. Let us head to the church. She shouted over the chant. The church tower loomed in the distance, a beacon of supposed safety. But the more she thought of that, the heavier her heart became. People dashed past her like leaves in a storm, faces distorted in unnatural mirth. Each touch felt like a jolt of static electric and wrong. Mom! There! Lucia pointed towards a gathering under the old oak tree, where lanterns hung like unblinking eyes. A circle of townsfolk gathered, figures she recognized but couldn't trust. A man she once shared drinks with stood at the forefront, his back straight, eyes glazed over as if in a trance. Do not look away from the light. He chanted, voice rising and falling like the tide. We are honored tonight by the Charro. Let us celebrate the balance. Mom Carlos's voice trembled. What are they doing? Nothing good, sweetheart. We need to keep moving. But her body froze, helpless against the tide pulling her toward the light. It was an infectious magnetism, the air thrummed with energy, and every instinct screamed for her to run, yet she couldn't tear her gaze from the circle. The silhouettes swayed, their eyes glinting in the lantern's glow, faces drawn tight like masks. And there, at the center, lay an altar draped in cloth, the last vestige of something sacred turned hideous. A pile of gold glimmered under the flickering flames, coins spilled over from the center, daring anyone to reach out. Maria's skin prickled. Gold. Sacrifice. The stories blared in her mind. The Charro Negro demanded offerings, and that shimmered pile was more than just treasure, it was laden with sorrow and despair. With every laugh, the crowd grew more enthralled, more hypnotized. A scream shattered the air, and the circle dispersed. Someone had broken the trance, stumbled upon the truth, and now chaos unfurled. The Charro Negro's form coalesced from the shadows, dark tendrils reaching into the heart of the crowd. Run! Maria shouted again, her instincts surging to life. But it was too late. Once drawn into the vortex of darkness, escape felt impossible. She spun her children around, pushing them toward the distant church. Yet behind them, the howling intensified, as if the darkness was a living entity, hungry for their souls. Keep going. She urged, as cries erupted around them. People were falling, being drawn behind the veil of shadows, trapped by their own desires. The edge of the crowd broke in front of the church door. Maria flung it open, the wooden creak drowning out the cacophony outside. Inside, the smell of dust mingled with something sweet, something foul. The church was dimly lit, remnants of prayers hanging heavy in the stale air. But nothing felt safe. A shifting presence loomed behind them as she closed the door, sealing the horrors outside but drawing the weight of the night's events tighter around them. What happens now? Lucia whispered, trembling. Maria swallowed hard, her own mind racing. They were momentarily shielded, but questions spun violently in her gut. What did the Charro Negro want? What sinister truth bound the town to its horror? The haunting howls echoed outside, growing closer. Her feet felt glued to the ground as shadows darted beneath the doors, whispering promises of torment. They needed answers, but how do you confront a curse that hungered for your very soul? A candle flickered on the altar, casting shadows that twisted and danced, revealing faces etched in fear. What if the answer they sought resided within these very walls, where the past intertwined with the present in malicious glee? With a newfound urgency, Maria stepped forward. But just as the flickering light began to illuminate the altar, darkness pooled like liquid ink in the corners, ready to spill over and swallow them all whole. What awaited them in the depths of the church? Would they uncover the truth, or would they succumb to the Charro Negro's curse? The candlelight flickered, casting treacherous shadows along the cobwebbed walls of the church. Each breath felt heavier, filled with fear and uncertainty. Maria could feel the weight of the night pressing down on her, thick as molasses. Carlos clung to her leg, his body shaking, while Lucia's wide eyes darted around the room, searching for something unseen. "Mom, are we safe here?" Carlos's voice was a whisper, quaking with anxiety. I don't know, honey," she admitted, the truth pulling at her gut. They had escaped the chaos outside, but at what cost? The church felt alive, creaking and groaning as if it were aware of its own legacy, a sanctuary that had sheltered countless souls, now a crypt for darker secrets. Maria turned her gaze to the altar. The gold spilled out like molten sunlight, a siren-esque call of danger. Each coin gleamed with a malevolent glow, urging her forward, promising salvation and drowning her in temptation. The stories of the Charro Negro flooded her mind again, relentless and cruel. What if that cursed wealth was connected to the very horror they were running from? "Let us go look," Lucia said, stepping toward the altar against Maria's wishes. "Stay back," Maria hissed, panicking as she reached for her daughter. But Lucia's resolve seemed to deepen, her questing fingers inching closer to that fateful treasure. "Mom! What if it helps? What if we can stop?" She grabbed Lucia's wrist. "It isn't worth it," she breathed, her voice low and urgent. "That gold, it might cost us more than we can imagine." Outside, the howling reached a fever pitch, a cacophony that rattled the door as shadows bled through the cracks. She could hear voices, whispers of the townsfolk, now distorted and tainted by madness driven by greed, led to their demise. They were just remnants of what had been a sinister echo of the town's dark past. "What do they want?" Carlos asked, confusion painting his pale face. I think they want the gold back." Her throat tightened at the thought. What if the cursed treasure was never meant to be owned? What if the Charro demanded balance in blood and sacrifice? The altar shimmered invitingly, but the candle flickered again, revealing something behind it, a flash of parchment, a map. Maria squinted through the dim light. There it was, haphazardly sprawled beneath the gold, beckoning her with an unsettling urge. What if it shows where the Charro Negro hides? She muttered, hesitating. Just then, the wind outside shifted. It howled like a wounded animal, shrieking for entrance. The doors rattled violently, the heavy sound echoing in the hollow space of the church. "We can't stay here. We have to find another way out." She grabbed her children and turned toward the back exit, but a sudden weight pressed against the door. Shadows writhed beneath it, clawing, begging to invade. "Mom, please. Let me see." Lucia begged, her little face twisted with determination. "No. It could be dangerous." Maria shouted, desperation rising as the howling intensified, an adrenaline rush coursing through her veins. "Please. What if it tells us how to undo this?" Just then, a loud crash resonated from the front entrance, splintering the quiet with screams of laughter that morphed into madness. A shadow larger than the night itself seeped through a figure cloaked in layers of darkness, eyes shimmering like cold stars. "Join us," it hissed, voice slithering through the air. "The offering awaits." Maria's heart thundered, slamming in her chest like a trapped animal. She felt the force of the dead words pull her as if the very essence of despair gripped her soul. She had to make a choice: grab the map or push her children through the back exit. Each second was a lifetime, each heartbeat an echo of dread. "Mom, please," Lucia said again, tears filling her eyes. What if the answer lay in that cursed treasure? But what if it threw them deeper into darkness? Would they become the next offering? As the figure stepped forward, the church trembled, stones rattling in their places. With time slipping like sand, Maria knew they had to act fast. Would they risk it all, or flee into the dark unknown? Her decision hung heavy in the air, as shadows whispered and the Charro Negro's curse crept closer. What would she choose? And would salvation or damnation find them first? Maria's mind raced as the shadow loomed closer. "We have to go," she shouted, her voice nearly lost in the chaos. The laughter outside twisted into a chilling melody, a song of madness spiraling into her very bones. With a surge of adrenaline, she pushed the children toward the back exit. Out! Now! The wooden door groaned in protest as she yanked it open, revealing the dark alleyway beyond. Wind whipped through, icy tendrils grazing her skin, but it meant freedom. At least, she hoped it did. Just as they stumbled through, the ground beneath their feet felt wrong, like the earth itself was alive, quivering in anticipation. Maria glanced back, her heart in her throat. Shadows danced like ribbons of smoke, swirling and choking the doorway as that twisted figure leaned forward, its dark form swallowing the light. "Mom!" Carlos cried, his small hand slipping from her grasp. "No!" She screamed, lunging back just in time to catch his arm, the panic clawing at her throat. As she spun, the door slammed shut with a resounding thud, reverberating off the stone walls like a funeral bell. "Mom, we can't leave the gold," Lucia begged, her voice shrill with desperation. "What if it shows us how to escape? What if it destroys us?" Maria shot back, her pulse thrumming as shadows slipped into the alleyway. They were fast, too fast. Fear wrapped around her like a vice. The stories her grandmother told of the Charro Negro echoed in her mind, unyielding, relentless, always hungry for blood. Before she could respond, a distant clang caught her attention. Maria's eyes shifted up as she caught sight of the church's bell tower looming above. It swayed ominously, the rickety sound reminding her of a heartbeat just like the one echoing in her ears. The bell's face seemed to twist and wobble, creating an unearthly visage almost mocking her. "Mom, look!" Lucia pointed, her voice trembling. A faint glow flickered in the bell tower, illuminating lines etched in stone. Curves and symbols a map. The sight chilled Maria to her core, yet she couldn't pull her gaze away. Was it another trap or a guide? Lost with indecision, she felt time slipping like water through her fingers. "What if we go back?" Carlos suggested, hope mixing with fear. "What if we can take the gold and leave? It might save us." The thought gripped Maria's heart, tightening its hold. The power of the gold could indeed unravel the horror chasing them, but at what cost? The whispers of the townsfolk echoed in her thoughts, those who had sought the riches before and vanished without a trace. Salvation or sacrifice, that seemed to be their only path. A sudden crash jolted her back to reality. The door burst open. Dark figures erupted into the street, wild-eyed, mouths twisted in deranged grins. Their hands reached for the children, clawing with the urgency of hunger. "Run!" Maria screamed, urgency boiling in her veins. She grabbed her children's hands, tugging them forward as they darted into the enveloping darkness of the alley. The night swallowed them, heavy and suffocating. But then came a pulse, a tremor in the ground that seemed to break the laws of reality. As they dashed forward, the shadows behind them began to take form, coiling together into a monstrous shape that lunged. "Mom! What do we do?" Carlos cried, panic staining his words. "Find the map," Maria yelled, fear turning her voice sharp as a knife. "It'll show us." With every step, the fear throbbed in her chest. She felt like a hunted animal, every instinct screaming to flee. But they needed the gold. The escape was woven from a tangled web of myth and reality, and now they were ensnared, the line between salvation and doom a mere whisper away. As the chilling echoes of laughter pierced the darkness, Maria felt a shifting in the air, something ancient and wicked stirring, calling out to her. "We have to find answers," she urged, her heart pounding as they turned another corner, but as they did, a figure emerged from the shadows, a twisted smile plastered on its face and eyes gleaming like polished stones. "Your offering is needed," it rasped. "Join us." In that frightful moment, Maria could see the truth dawning like a dark sun. Would the map lead to their escape or chain their souls to the Charro Negro forever? The choices stretched before them like a narrowing path, and they were running out of time. Maria felt disoriented, caught in the grip of escalating dread. The figure before them, a grotesque reflection of madness, seemed to pulse with a life of its own. Its eyes glittered, hungry and malevolent, as if it fed off their fear. Her instincts screamed to back away, but the shadows thrummed around them, urging them forward. "Stay behind me," she commanded, pulling Carlos and Lucia close. The children clung to her, their faces illuminated by a flickering street lamp, showing wide eyes brimming with terror. Maria's mind raced, she had to protect them at all costs. The shadow figure laughed, a hollow sound that reverberated through the alley walls. "You cannot escape what you do not understand," it mocked. The words wrapped around her like a noose, tightening with each heartbeat. "Let's find that map," Lucia whispered urgently, her voice weak against the darkness pressing in. "Where?" Carlos whimpered, clutching his mother's hand harder. Maria scanned the walls of the alley, frantic for answers. Scrawled graffiti caught her eye, symbols mirroring the ones glowing in the bell tower. "There. It's similar," she exclaimed, pointing to the symbols in desperation. "Mom, hurry!" Carlos cried, the figure lunging closer, compelled by an unseen force. The laughter intensified, drowning out thoughts of safety. With a deep breath, Maria darted toward the wall, tugging the kids along. Each step felt heavier, the ground threatening to swallow them whole. The symbols pulsed as if alive. Were they trying to communicate? "What do you want?" she shouted into the void, anguish boiling beneath her skin. The figure paused, eyes narrowing. "Life in exchange for truth," it rasped, voice like gravel. "Dare you trust the map? They're playing with us." Maria screamed, pulling her children tighter. Panic clawed at her throat, but there was no time for fear, only action. She studied the lines, her fingers tracing the curves instinctively. Suddenly, the map illuminated, bright as a beacon amidst the encroaching darkness. Each pulse reverberated through her, as if the ancient symbols had awakened from a long slumber. "Mom, please!" Lucia cried, peering over her shoulder. "What is happening?" The ground quaked, shadows swirling violently, echoing Maria's turmoil. "I don't know, but we need to follow it, fast," she shouted. As they backed away, the shadow figure, enraged, extended its gnarled hand. "You cannot flee. Your offering is due." Then, in a moment of surreal horror, the alley shifted, bending reality itself. The scattered debris began to rattle, pieces of broken glass clinking together, echoing under an unseen rhythm. The very walls seemed to thrum, vibrating with what felt like centuries of despair. "Mom! I'm scared," Carlos whined, his voice thin and trembling. "Follow me," Maria barked, urgency spilling over into her actions. The map brightened, almost glowing, a harbinger of hope or doom. Taking a deep breath, she plunged deeper into the alley, frantic as the figures behind them clawed desperately at the air. "We have to trust it," she yelled above the cacophony, every fiber of her being flickering with doubt. But the map pulsed, driving her forward. With each step, the shadows lost their form, blurring between fear and reality. Strange whispers wove around them, pleading and threatening in one breath, but Maria focused ahead. There was no turning back now. The darkness closed in as the shadows twisted, heightening her terror anew. "What is it hiding?" she breathed, almost to herself. As they approached the end of the alley, a sudden flash blinded her, like lightning splitting the night. Maria stumbled, falling to her knees as visibility returned in waves. "Mom, what is happening?" Lucia's small voice broke through the disorienting light. Before her stood a doorway, but beyond it lay a swirling void, pulsating like a heartbeat. The map flickered in her mind. "Do we?" Maria hesitated, teetering on the brink of a decision that could seal their fate. Then the shadow figure burst forth from the depths, its laughter morphing into a cacophony of rage. "You can't escape your truth, Maria. The cost demands payment, and it is coming." Maria's heart raced as she felt the weight of inevitability press down. Would they step through the doorway into freedom, or become yet another offering destined to feed the insatiable darkness? Every moment twisted like a knife, and she had only seconds. Maria's heart hammered in her chest as she surveyed the swirling void before her. It beckoned like a siren, whispering promises of escape, but her instincts screamed danger. Carlos and Lucia stood frozen, their little faces pale with fear, the weight of the darkness behind them urging them forward and pulling them back at the same time. The shadow figure loomed closer, smirking with a grin that split its grotesque face. "Make your choice. The door or the offering," it taunted, its voice a slithering whisper that slithered into her ears, planting seeds of doubt. "Mom, please!" Carlos wailed, glancing back at the advancing malevolent force. Lucia squeezed her brother's hand tighter, her wide eyes shimmering with unshed tears. Maria swallowed hard. She felt the suffocating pressure of time pressing down. The symbols on the map flashed in her mind, vivid and demanding. "What do we do?" she murmured, anxiety creeping in. "Do it!" The figure roared, and the alley walls trembled. "Feed it. Show me your truth, that's what it craves." She could feel the pull of the doorway, an intoxicating promise of reprieve. But for every inch she could gain in safety, the fear within her surged. Could she sacrifice herself for the children? Could it even come to that? In a frantic surge, she grasped the glowing map again, searching its symbols. Each flicker sparked something ancient within her, igniting forgotten memories. They weren't just symbols. They told a story, one resonating with shadows and light, a struggle between despair and illumination. "Mom! We have to walk through," Lucia urged, determination seeping into her voice. Maria's breath caught in her throat. But what if she hesitated? What lay beyond the doorway? Freedom? Or perhaps a hellish trap? "Follow me, let us trust the map," she finally cried, her spirit igniting with fierce resolve. If there was a chance, a sliver of hope, she had to take it. The gravity of the shadow figure's insistence sent chills down her spine. If they meant to devour their souls, she wouldn't let it happen without a fight. "Now!" she shouted, grabbing the children's hands. They surged toward the doorway together. As they stepped closer, the swirling void pulsed angrily, a sentient thing ready to either embrace or consume them. "You cannot escape!" The shadow roared, reaching out with elongated fingers that stretched impossibly long. They scraped at the air, clawing, hungry for the terror that radiated from Maria and her children, but the moment they crossed the threshold, a jolt of energy surged through them. The door slammed shut behind, sealing off the darkness. The children cried out. Was it relief, or was something worse about to come? They landed in an expansive chamber, the air heavy and thick, a stark contrast to the oppressive alley. Glowing crystals dangled from the ceiling, illuminating the vast room in eerie, pulsating light. "What is this place?" Lucia asked, her voice quivering. A distant sound vibrated in the air, growing louder, a rhythmic beating that pulled at the core of Maria's being. It was the pulse of something ancient, something alive. And then she saw it, an altar at the center, littered with what looked like remnants of offerings, golden relics and darkened trinkets. Each item seemed to hum, alive with an energy that sent shivers down her spine. Mom. Carlos approached the altar slowly, eyes wide. "Look at this." A twisted figure emerged from the shadows surrounding the altar, a shape not unlike the shadow creature but more defined, more corporeal. "You've entered my domain," it hissed, twisted lips curling into a smile. "And now, the price must be paid." In that moment, Maria felt the inevitability of the choice she faced clawing at her lungs. What was it demanding? Would they have to sacrifice the remnants of what they had? Or could they bargain their way out of this horror? With the weight of dread pressing on her, she knew this was merely the beginning of their nightmare. The altar pulsed with dark energy, calling out to her. "Whatever the price, we'll find a way out," she said with shaky confidence. But as she reached for the golden relics, she felt a cold tremor in her heart. What if they would never leave this place? What if darkness had truly claimed them? As their fingers grazed the relics, the room trembled, echoes of 1,000 whispers warning them of the curse that awaited. Beware, for the truth is darker than you can fathom. Maria's breath caught as she met the creature's gaze, a wave of realization flooding her. What truth awaited them next? It was only then that she noticed the inscription etched on the altar, each word dripping with malice. Eternal torment by the hands of the Charro Negro. What did that mean for them? What lay on the other side of truth? Desperation clawed its way back into her heart as shadows loomed, foreboding and suffocating. They were not safe yet, not by a long shot. The air shimmered around them as if the altar itself were breathing, a sinister energy weaving through the room. Maria fought against the rising panic clawing at her throat. What was the Charro Negro? The words echoed in her mind, heavy and oppressive, a tangible weight that pressed down on her chest like a leaden cloak. Mom. Carlos's small voice broke through the throbbing silence. He stood by the altar, his fingers hovering curiously over the remnants scattered across it. What if we just take something? Maybe we can barter with it. His eyes glistened with innocent hope, but that hope slipped dangerously into naivety. No. Maria's sharp response cut through the air. We can't just take things that don't belong to us. But her voice quivered. The fear creeping back into her bones made her heartbeat quicken. They had already faced so much darkness, and to confront this new terror was like standing on the edge of a steep cliff. As if mocking her, the figure before them smiled, its expression a gruesome mix of amusement and hunger. You'll learn that sacrifices hold power here, dear Maria. Its voice slithered around her, wrapping her in an icy grip. The Charro Negro doesn't just want your offerings, it craves your deepest fears, your unspoken regrets. Maria's throat tightened, memories flooding her mind, shadows of guilt she had tried to bury, moments lost to doubt and hardship. Her gaze darted to the children, desperate to shield them from this suffocating insight. We can outsmart it, she whispered, almost more to herself than them. Lucia squeezed her mom's hand tightly, her young face a mask of uncertainty. But they're just things, she protested. Isn't that what the shadows want? Things. Before Maria could answer, the walls of the chamber shivered ominously. A low hum echoed, heavy with tension, and a chorus of whispered voices rose, growing in volume, wrapping around them. Offer yourself, reveal your sins. Only then will you be free. The creature's eyes glowed with a dark hunger as it leaned forward, towering over them. Your truth shall be your bond, and your choice shall decide who lives and who meets the Charro Negro's curse. It stretched its fingers toward them, the shadowy appendages swirling through the air like smoke. Mom, we can't stay here. Carlos said, panic seeping into his voice. There was a frantic energy in the way he pulled at her arm, urging her to move away from the altar. We have to find another way out somewhere else. Lucia's whispered plea was chilling, her innocence stark against the foreboding walls of the chamber. Maria took a step back, feeling the creeping dread rise in her stomach. What if the way out goes deeper into the darkness? The thought clawed at her mind. Every instinct screamed for flight, yet what lay beyond that doorway? What horror lurked in the shadows? Tentatively, she brushed her fingers against one of the golden relics, ancient memories flooding her mind, each artifact whispering secrets of forgotten worlds and the legs of the cursed Charro Negro. A sudden, violent tremor rattled through the chamber, and deep cracks formed in the altar beneath her hand. Are you ready to pay the price? The creature hissed, its voice dripping with malice. Maria's heart raced. The cost of freedom was escalating, and she could feel that truth tugging her into the abyss. Just then, from a shadowy corner of the chamber, the echo of laughter rang out, cruel and cold. You think your memories will save you? The Charro Negro only thrives on despair and blood. A dread realization crashed over Maria. They weren't just fighting for their lives, they were entangled in a web of anguish crafted by ancient forces. Every decision could unravel them in a moment, sealing their fates forever. Mom, look! Carlos shouted, pointing to a crack in the chamber wall. The darkness flickered, pulsating with an energy that seemed to beckon them, offering a glimpse of escape, but as Maria turned towards the crack, she sensed the creature tightening its grip, its smile widening just beyond the threshold of her comfort. She knew time was short, With every heartbeat, darkness encroached deeper. Are we going to risk it? Lucia asked, her small voice trembling. Or fight? Maria paused, torn between escaping into the unknown and standing her ground. When it came to survival, how much of themselves would they be willing to sacrifice? With a deep breath, she turned back to the altar, the relics glowing ominously. Fear clashed with desperation. It was time to make a choice, one that could steer them either into salvation or deeper into the cursed fate of the Charro Negro. Would they claim their freedom or pay the ultimate price? The chamber quaked, a sinister laugh reverberating around them, and the whispers grew louder as the last of Maria's resolve teetered on the edge. The shadows thickened. What horrifying truth awaited them if they dared to step forward? As the room trembled with dark energy, Maria's heart raced. The echo of the creature's laughter twisted within her, hinting at the horrors that lay ahead. She was caught between the allure of escape and the grip of dread that held her tightly. "Mom, please." Carlos begged, his grip on her arm tightening. Lucia hid behind Maria, her small frame trembling. The cracks in the altar seemed to pulse like a heartbeat, threatening to swallow them whole. "We need to go, now." Carlos whispered, fear dripping from his voice. Gritting her teeth, Maria shook her head. "We can't just run blindly into the dark. What if it's worse?" But even as she spoke, realization dawned. The relics, pieces of another time, lost and forgotten, might hold answers. Or they could spell doom. "Look." Lucia pointed, her wide eyes transfixed on a relic that glowed with a soft light, contrasting sharply against the surrounding darkness. The artifact seemed to pulse with energy, inviting them closer. "Wait." Maria urged, stepping forward cautiously, her instincts battling against her. What if touching it drew them further into danger? The creature shifted, its smile widening, revealing rows of jagged teeth. "Ah, the golden heart of sacrifice, you wish to barter with the past. You'll find it more demanding than you expect, dear Maria." Each word dripped with malice, fanning the flames of Maria's anxiety. Could it see into her very soul? Could it sense her doubts and fears swirling like a tempest inside her? "Mom." Carlos was relentless, tugging on her sleeve. "We can't trust it. Please, let us go." Just then, sharp screams echoed from beyond the chamber walls, piercing the eerie calm. The sound sent a chill through Maria's bones. It wasn't just the Charro Negro they had to fear. What else lurked in the shadows outside? "Mom!" Lucia cried out again, panic anchoring her voice. "What is happening?" Maria turned toward her children, determination flickering like a flame. "We need to figure out what that relic is before making a choice." Fear gnawed at her common sense, but if it held anything that could help them, they had to take the risk. As she reached for the glowing relic, the cold air dropped, suffocating. Shadows slithered around her fingers, as if sensing her intentions. "No!" The creature shrieked, a chilling wail that reverberated through the chamber. The walls pulsed violently, and the whispers roared, crescendoing into a cacophony that threatened to drown their sanity. Maria yanked her hand back, eyes wide. "What do we do now?" she whispered, feeling the walls close in. The darkness writhed, and the lights flickered ominously. It was as if the very essence of the chamber was alive, a predator stalking its prey. "Please." Carlos whimpered, "I don't want any of this. Just make it stop." The sinister laughter danced around them, taunting, reveling in their despair. The lights dimmed further, casting them into near total darkness. Heartbeats quickened, breaths became shallow, and the ever-looming tension stretched thin. Then in a sudden surge, the relic blasted forth a golden light, briefly illuminating the chamber. In that moment, they saw everything: the Charro Negro looming amidst swirling shadows, faces pressing against the walls, their mouths agape in silent screams. Maria's breath hitched in her throat. It was a glimpse of the Charro Negro's curse-swallowed souls of regret, forever bound to the altar. She turned to her children, resolve solidifying in her chest. "If we don't act now, we'll become part of it, too." But what action could save them? What sacrifice would appease the dark hunger of the Charro Negro? As the relic pulsed brighter, time hung suspended, each second stretching into infinity. Would they choose to confront the terror head-on, or risk succumbing to the bleak pull of dread? And what secrets did the gold hold that could change their fates forever? In the deepening silence, Maria felt the weight of their choices pressing down upon her. It was either to confront the darkness or embrace it. What would they carry into the abyss? Maria felt the cold fingers of despair tighten around her throat as the chamber dimmed, shadows coiling like serpents. She stood at a precipice, the dark energy whispering promises of freedom mixed with dire consequences. The Charro Negro's curse loomed above them, a specter demanding tribute, a relentless force that could consume not just her, but her children too. "Mom, please." Carlos whimpered again, battered by the tension in the air. His little body trembled with fear, his innocent demeanor a stark contrast to the sinister reality swirling around them. Lucia's grip tightened around her, the strength of their bond becoming the only comfort against the encroaching horror. "I know, honey," Maria said, forcing her breath to steady as she faced them. "We're going to find a way out. Together." With conviction bolstering her, she turned toward the relics again, brighter now, illuminating their potential for hope or doom. She took a step forward as the creature loomed closer, a twisted smile lurking in the shadows, eyes gleaming with dark promises. "Your time runs thin," it hissed, the echo vibrating through the chamber. "The Charro Negro requires not mere offerings, but the essence of your fears, your truths entwined with gold." The air thickened, pressure building like a volcanic eruption, but Maria steadied herself. "No. We will not surrender our truths to you. We will fight." The energy rippling from her words surprised even herself, determination spiraling in defiance against the creature. If they could not appease the Charro Negro, they would defy it. "Then embrace your doom." It shrieked, shadows tearing through the walls, twisting and writhing. But before it could reach them, Maria lunged toward the trunk of glowing relics, her heart pounding. She snatched the brightest one, feeling an electric shock pulse through her hand. The chamber responded, a tremor rippling beneath them, vibrating with energy, as if the floor feared the power held in her grasp. The terror wavered, even the creature stumbled back, confusion mixing with rage on its grotesque face. "Do you think it will save you?" It sneered, a facade of confidence crumbling. "The Charro Negro is ancient, eternally hungry. Maybe. But in this moment, I am my children's guardian, and whatever you are, you have no hold over our hearts." She felt a warmth radiate from the relic, a whisper igniting hope within her chest, a light stronger than any darkness. With hasty movements, Maria pointed toward the altar. "Come on. Let us disrupt their hunger." She pulled her children close, raising the relic high. The glow intensified, illuminating the faces pressed against the walls, revealing their hollow eyes filled with despair. It was a sight that could freeze anyone's heart, yet Maria could not falter. "Take hold of your fears. We will not become part of your curse," she shouted. The words poured from her, bolstered by the relic's energy. Suddenly, the shadows recoiled, releasing anguished wails that echoed through the chamber, like souls desperately trying to escape their bonds. The Charro Negro howled, its form flickering between monstrous and faint as if it couldn't sustain its dreadful presence in the face of pure defiance. "You think you can resist?" Its voice came out as a tortured screech. "You will pay. Release your grip." But Maria tightened her hold. "We will release you." The relic pulsed in agreement, brightening, casting the deepest corners of darkness into an array of colors, a burst of fiery light igniting within them. "Mom!" Lucia yelled, her voice trembling yet unwavering. "We can do it." Without hesitation, Maria drove the relic toward the altar. A tremor quaked through the room, reverberating against her bones, as the relic connected. A brilliant light erupted, blinding her for a moment, enveloping them all, saturating the chamber in iridescent hues that washed away shadows. Maria felt the darkness rippled and writhe, its grip waning as the echoes of tortured souls rose into the glow, flying toward the ceiling like swarms of silver butterflies. Each whisper of darkness began to tear apart. unraveling the threads of despair. Freed from your chains, your hunger returns to the earth. We are not your offerings. She shouted, every letter resonating a promise combined with fierce conviction. With a final explosion of light, the Charro Negro's howls crescendoed, a cacophony of rage and horror as its form disintegrated before her, spiraling into nothingness. The chamber fell silent, the remnants of darkness fading into the light of the relic. Maria grasped her children tightly, holding them close, tears streaming down her face, merging relief with disbelief. We did it, we broke free. She cried, laughter bubbling up in her chest, bright and buoyant, pushing through the scars of fear. Mom, I wasn't scared. Carlos tried, pulling away slightly, a proud grin stretching across his face, unaware of the truth that hid beneath. Lucia's eyes glimmered with the same resilience. What now? She asked, glancing around their darkening surroundings which now had a hint more light. As Maria looked at her children, a smile spreading across her face, she felt hope surging once again. Now, we deliver the tales of our truth to the world above. We unravel the darkness for those still lost. With hands intertwined, they stepped away from the broken altar, toward the flickering glow leading them back to the surface, their laughter ringing through the vast silence as a final goodbye to the chains that once bound them. Finally, they surfaced into the night, greeted by the twinkling lights of the festival, now devoid of dread. They were free. But as they walked away, Maria glanced back once more, spirited by the echoes lingering in the air as she murmured, and we shall remember, forever. The shadows danced behind them, but now, they were simply shadows, a reminder of the darkness they had defeated. The townsfolk would speak of their bravery in hushed tones, and the Charro Negro would no longer haunt their dreams. It was time for a new chapter to begin. Thank you for joining us on this journey. If you enjoyed this story, you need to subscribe now. Don't miss out on the next exclusive adventures. Click that bell and select all notifications so you're always in the loop. Smash the like button now to help us feed the algorithm and keep the tales alive. Flood the comments with your thoughts and theories about Maria's journey and what it all means. Every reaction matters, and don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Thank you for sending them into the realms of intrigue and exploration. Let us spread the magic together.